A nossa vida digital moderna oferece comodidade, comunidade e facilidade de acesso.
The internet opens unbelievable opportunities.
Mas há uma contrapartida: os nossos dados pessoais.
Pretty much everything you do on the web is being tracked and logged.
Who you are, what you're doing, and where you're going.
This is the mothership. Can you show me what I've inadvertently given up?
E esses dados valem uma fortuna.
People expect it to grow to $400 billion.
To completely avoid data collection. It requires you to go live in a cave.
Felizmente, existem ferramentas que ajudam a manter a privacidade e segurança online.
Let's create some strong and unique passwords.
Everything has privacy settings. We can dial to whatever level we feel comfortable.
E alguns programadores estão a reescrever as regras da web.
Decentralized web is our antidote to the web as we now think of it.
New technologies can proliferate without centralized control.
This is about technological self-determination.
Vamos conhecer os segredos dos nossos dados. O nosso mundo depende dos dados. Quando está a fazer compras online, a ver os seus programas favoritos, a publicar fotografias de família, vários dados pessoais saem do seu dispositivo.
What's up, everyone? I'm about to head to the hospital for a night shift.
Chamo-me Alok Patel, sou pediatra, jornalista médico e entusiasta das redes sociais.
Just got here at the Children's Hospital. I work night shifts.
Adoro as nossas vidas interligadas e não hesito em partilhar a minha publicamente.
30 million children.
Sei que a partilha de dados pessoais pode ter grandes vantagens. Há exemplos evidentes disso.
Complete list. Snyder is conducting several studies to see how far wearables can go in detecting disease.
A man rescued yesterday after going missing. Credit to social media posts for helping save his life.
6 out of 10 people with Alzheimer's or dementia will wander away from home, and that's where this little box comes in.
Não há dúvida de que os nossos dados andam por aí. Mas alguma vez se perguntou para onde vão e como são utilizados? Eu quero saber. Quais são os benefícios da partilha e os riscos? E o que podemos fazer para tornar o nosso mundo ligado mais seguro e melhor para todos? Primeiro, o essencial. Quero saber quantos dados pessoais tenho partilhado. Vou falar com Hayley Tsukayama, jornalista tecnológica e defensora da privacidade dos dados.
You must be Hayley.
Hi, nice to meet you.
What is going on?
Espera, eu não estava à espera disto. Ela tem a minha vida toda no ecrã.
So, this is a data report gathered about you from social media posts, from images of you that may be on the internet, from publicly available information.
This is like a family business. That's my dad's cell phone number. Why is this available? Oh, this is my address. This is just available?
Just available online.
Okay, cool. There's my cell phone number. Oh, this is concerning. As a medical doctor, we all have license numbers and issue dates and expiration dates, and it's literally right here. This is so weird. These are the names of my neighbors from my childhood home. Why do you have this information? Like, I haven't seen these names in years.
Estava à espera de ver alguns dos meus dados, mas isto é assustador. Como é que podem ter um relatório sobre quem eram os meus vizinhos nos anos 80?
You can be assured that pretty much everything you do on the web and with a browser is being tracked and logged. Where you go, what you look at, what apps you use.
Modern life has been arranged so that every aspect of what we do and how we live can be captured.
They pick up our faces as we walk down the street. They track our keystrokes while we're at work on behalf of our employer.
And ad networks use a bunch of creepy and nefarious ways of figuring out who you are, what you're doing, and where you're going.
O que aconteceu à internet com que cresci? Cheguei à idade adulta quando a internet era uma festa divertida e toda a gente tinha sido convidada. Lembram-se do GeoCities, das mensagens instantâneas ou do bebê que dançava o Uga Chaka? Hoje é evidente que essa inocência desapareceu. A festa acabou? Para compreender o presente, quero relembrar o passado. Por isso vou visitar o Museu de História do Computador em Silicon Valley.
Okay, I'm headed straight for the sun.
Vou encontrar-me com o historiador de computadores Mark Webber.
Maneuver. There's a straight line of bullets coming right at you.
Que acabou de me vencer no campo de batalha cósmico do Space War, um dos primeiros jogos de vídeo.
This is actually really fun. This is cool.
ICBM computer from a nuclear missile.
Whoa.
Human-computer interaction.
Now this looks fascinating. I can't tell if this is like this universal clock apparatus or what's happening here.
This is the first punched card machine, and this was an invention to make the US Census faster.
Parece incrível, mas o início da recolha automatizada de dados pessoais parece com isto. Informações dos censos colocadas em pequenos cartões perfurados.
Mark, can you explain punch cards to me? Because when I think punch cards, I'm thinking lottery tickets or buy 9 cups of coffee and your 10th is free.
Well, it was the first way to record machine-readable data.
Vamos lá explicar melhor. Este tipo de recolha de dados existe há séculos. Mas a partir de 1890, os dados foram registados num padrão de furos perfurados num cartão de recenseamento.
So the cards were used to collect census data. What exact questions were on there?
So things like age, gender, number of children.
Quando um cartão passa pela máquina, os orifícios permitem que os pinos façam ligações elétricas através do cartão. Um contador mantém um registro contínuo em cada categoria de recenseamento à medida que mais cartões passam. Os dados do censo são a forma como o governo atribui recursos para escolas e hospitais, traça políticas para os distritos e decide quantos representantes cada estado enviará para o Congresso. É um lembrete do valor da recolha de dados, mas está muito longe de monitorizar todos os meus movimentos na internet. Para ajudar a ligar os pontos, Mark mostra-me o próximo passo surpreendente na evolução da recolha de dados.
I look at this and I'm almost like, oh, this looks like a modern office building to me.
Exactly. Each one of those is one of these giant terminals here.
Durante a Guerra Fria, a IBM interligou computadores de todo o país para monitorizar o espaço aéreo dos Estados Unidos da América em tempo real.
So this is a terminal from Sage.
Foi o primeiro sistema de dados em rede em tempo real. Tempo real significa instantâneo e em rede significa ligado. Computadores de todo o país foram ligados uns aos outros para que pudessem partilhar dados em tempo real, como na internet.
The whole point was to track incoming Soviet bombers, and they built arguably the first computer network in the world.
A IBM concluiu que os seus computadores de localização de aviões podiam ser utilizados comercialmente. Em 1960 surgiu o Sabre, um sistema de dados em rede, em tempo real, que partilhava dados pessoais.
The story goes that the head of American Airlines met with IBM and they decided to do a partnership. The key idea being real time. They could look at your age, your name, financial information, what flights you'd been on before, your dietary preferences for your meal, all of this right then in real time.
We went from tracking bombs to tracking butts on planes.
Exactly.
Entre o Pong, os cartões perfurados e os aviões, pude ver como os dados começaram a ligar o mundo. O exército ao nosso espaço aéreo e as empresas aos seus clientes. Mas que nome daríamos se esses clientes em todo o mundo estivessem ligados uns aos outros? Ah, sim, a World Wide Web.
The World Wide Web is a part of our lives and getting bigger every day. But what about the man who dreamt it all up? No millions for him.
As notícias abriram-nos os olhos para esta inovação e para o seu criador, Tim Berners-Lee.
He simply wanted to give it away for the benefit of others.
When the web started, anybody could make a website. You could make your own style, your own poems, your own blogs, and you could link to other people. The feeling then, the sense was of tremendous empowerment.
Some of us remember the internet when it was managed and curated by people, where it was, bulletin board systems and chat rooms.
No final dos anos 90, as pequenas startups estavam a transformar-se em grandes empresas de tecnologia, com muitos utilizadores e respectivos dados.
As the web grew, we ended up with a very few companies going and doing all of the hosting. It wasn't your actual personal computer doing it.
The large platforms that have emerged are dependent upon user-generated content and user engagement. The modern internet is a wholly commercial kind of internet.
À medida que o tráfego da web fluía cada vez mais através de algumas empresas, estas começaram a perceber-se do valor de todos os dados pessoais que se acumulavam nos seus servidores.
Google started to understand the power of individuals' data. They have information about not just how the websites are interconnected, but also information about the individuals.
The big technology companies, they're looking at where you are, they're wanting to know what your gender is, what your age is, how much you have to spend, what your political beliefs are. They have a lot of power to determine what our privacy is.
That's trillions of dollars of economic value that's out there. And there's a constant struggle between who owns the data. We create the data, but somebody else monetizes it.
À medida que as grandes empresas amadureciam, a recolha de dados em sites era bastante limitada. Mas o que aconteceu para criar a vasta infraestrutura de rastreio que permitiu a Hailey descobrir tanto sobre mim? Esse grande avanço deu-se quando alguém inventou os cookies.
A cookie is not actually a tasty snack. When you go to a website, the website sends a small file to your browser.
Este pequeno ficheiro permite que o site recolha informações sobre a nossa visita e as atualize sempre que regressamos. Talvez já tenham ouvido falar de cookies porque muitos sites apresentam mensagens a pedir-lhes que os aceitem. Mas o que acontece depois de clicar em aceitar?
That then uses cookies to track who you are and what you're doing, including, in many cases, all of the other websites that you go to.
Cookies have the cutest name, but they're actually really important pieces of information about you. Every time you click on a menu, every time you look at an item or put it in your cart, every time you want to buy something and click out of the website and come back in, a cookie is what's enabling you to do that. It's a piece of tracking information. You can impute data and information about you from the seemingly innocent behavior online that's tracked by cookies. Do you have certain lifestyle conditions? What age are you? What gender or race are you? Do you have children?
Estas empresas de tecnologia utilizam cookies para saberem em que sites estou, o que estou a comprar e o que estou a ver. Mas será que têm outras formas de descobrir os segredos dos meus dados? Para saber mais, vou falar com um especialista em segurança de dados na sua casa high-tech, naturalmente.
Are you Patrick Jackson? My name is Alok.
Yes, I am.
Awesome, I'm in the right place.
Your phone is sending this extra data to these people that you don't know exist.
Patrick Jackson é conhecido pelo seu trabalho como antigo investigador da NSA e é agora diretor técnico da empresa de segurança na Internet Disconnect. E se há alguém que me pode ajudar a perceber como é que os meus dados pessoais estão a ser partilhados, é ele.
Patrick, when I think about the main control of my work, life, play, what I'm doing at home, when I'm on the road, this is the mothership. If I were to relinquish control of this precious device for a few moments, can you show me what I've inadvertently given up?
Yes, yeah. I can show you what these data companies know about you and what they're collecting.
Através de uma técnica de pirataria informática chamada Attack Man in the Middle, Patrick pode interceptar os dados pessoais que saem do meu dispositivo e que revelam uma conversa entre mim e os sites e aplicações que uso.
Contact information, name, phone number, email address, when you agreed to allow them to have your location. I can see not only where you're at on the map, but also where you're at in your house, whether you're at the back of the house or the front of the house. When you look at the data leaving the phone, every time you open an app, you send about maybe 500 kilobytes of data to their servers. That is equivalent to about 125 pages of text that you would print in a printer.
Posso admitir que as aplicações no meu telemóvel estejam a recolher dados. Fui eu que escolhi instalá-las. Mas Patrick diz que outras empresas têm formas mais furtivas de obter os meus dados em algo tão inofensivo como um e-mail de marketing. Para o demonstrar, Patrick envia-me um falso e-mail promocional.
I have an email that says shoe sale. It says open to view the shoe sale, and I want to open it, so I'm going to. Hi, Alok. Get ready for upcoming shoe sale. I like this graphic. It has like social media icon. This looks legit.
Os e-mails podem incluir um pixel rastreador, também conhecido como pixel espião ou invisível.
An invisible pixel is a type of image you're never intended to see, but it still initiates a handshake of data from your device to these data companies. Most of the emails that you receive likely have these tracking pixels in them.
Most?
Most. This invisible pixel was actually disguised as the banner in that email. In other cases, the tracking pixel will be a 1 pixel, very, very tiny image that you would never see with your eyes, and it's not meant to be seen.
Aquele pixel, aquele espião, estão a vê-lo? Pode esconder-se em imagens incorporadas numa mensagem de correio eletrónico, como um banner ou mesmo um botão de cancelar a subscrição. E quando se abre o e-mail, contactam um site de rastreio para recolher dados sobre nós. Pode recolher o modelo do dispositivo, a localização e até o histórico de navegação.
This is essentially a digital fingerprint of your device.
No.
That fingerprint would identify you as who you are, and somebody else in the future could look at that fingerprint, make you do a new fingerprint, and they would know that this is the same person.
As empresas estão a tirar cópias das minhas impressões digitais onde quer que eu vá na internet. E ao seguir esse rastro,
companies are over time collecting everything about you. And that's how they build up this digital profile about you.
The internet is this data collection machine. And as we're moving through the internet, there are these companies whose whole job is to reassemble that trail.
Agora sei que o meu perfil digital anda por aí. Mas porquê? Quem se importa que eu tire fotografias a fazer o pino ou tenha demasiados ténis? Acontece que há toda uma indústria dedicada a vender os meus dados. São os corretores de dados.
Data brokers are companies that are set up to collect information, repackage it, and resell it or reshare it to other companies that may want to know information about you.
Mas para que querem os nossos dados pessoais? Que diferença lhes faz o facto de eu adorar frango ou qual é o meu filme favorito?
They collect all this information and then they're really trying to slice and dice it in ways that are appealing to customers. You know, this could be an employer who's doing research on you. It could be a retailer who wants to know what kind of customers they can target with ads. That kind of information is really valuable for advertisers because they want to target advertising to a certain type of person.
Os nossos dados acabam por ser compilados em relatórios como este, que são depois vendidos a quem estiver interessado.
Data brokers are able to say, look, we have a group of people that will fit the audience of your product. We really are happy to serve this list of people to you, or to make a score about how likely they might be to purchase your product.
Okay, I know people say, oh, your phones aren't listening to you, but we were just talking about retro video games, and here is an ad for home mini arcade machines, which looks kind of cool, but how did it know we were just talking about that? Is my phone listening? Is it a psychic? What's happening?
People always say, I was talking about this product, and then I saw an ad for it. Matt, are they listening through my phone? And I'm like, well, they didn't hear you. They didn't listen to anything. The truth is actually more frightening. You talked about that thing because they influenced you into having this conversation. It's because the algorithm took you to this place. And that's the situation with our data.
Houve alguns exemplos de empresas de publicidade que escutaram sem consentimento. Mas isso é ilegal. Na maior parte dos casos, os algoritmos de publicidade conhecem-nos tão bem que conseguem prever o que achamos interessante. São tão fiáveis porque estudaram todos os dados recolhidos sobre nós pelos corretores de dados.
There's this kind of dossier that's being created about you as you're wandering around the internet, and it's being used to, decide what ads you see.
A publicidade alimenta a economia da internet. E a publicidade é alimentada por nós, pelos nossos dados pessoais. Então, como é que os algoritmos funcionam?
You land on a web page, and that web page gets your IP address. A unique identifier is returned to a data broker. That data broker looks up all the facts that were ever gleaned about you. A dossier that describes you.
Depois, os anunciantes licitam, literalmente, num leilão em tempo real com base na única lição de que me lembro do curso de Economia: oferta e procura.
The demand-side platform that the advertiser is on says, I have here an 18 to 34-year-old man-child with an Xbox in Southern California. Who wants to pay to cram something non-consensually into his eyeballs? And that takes place in a marketplace. And you have advertisers on the other side who have standing orders. They're like, I want to advertise to 18 to 34-year-old man-children in Southern California who own Xboxes. And the marketplace conducts an automated high-speed auction where it's just like, I'll pay so many fractions of a cent. I'll pay that plus 10%. The high bidder gets to show you an ad.
Tudo isto acontece quase instantaneamente. E é possível porque os corretores de dados classificam e selecionam os dados pessoais em grupos de consumidores super detalhados. É este o processo que permite apresentar anúncios personalizados, relevantes, para sapatos giros ou para aquele novo conjunto de chá que todos os anúncios parecem saber sobre si.
Here we have, for example, soccer mom.
Okay, I might be able to identify with that.
Uma loja de artigos desportivos poderia consultar um ficheiro sobre a atividade online de uma mãe suburbana.
What are the things that they tend to spend money on? Do they like to save? Are there certain times of year where they might spend more or less?
Com todos estes dados sobre os hábitos de consumo das mães, as lojas podem enviar anúncios personalizados com uma sincronização extraordinária. Algumas pessoas gostam dos resultados. As mães recebem ofertas, os anunciantes mantêm os sites de que gostamos em atividade. Mas algumas categorias de consumidores podem ser mais preocupantes.
Sometimes they'll have categories that are like, this person has erectile dysfunction, this person has a gambling problem. This is a list of kind of people that are likely to fall for frauds. So these can be really powerful and damaging lists.
So this one, for example, diabetes.
Oh, okay, healthcare demographic.
The thing about that, right, is like, when you're thinking particularly about health data, that indicates that you're probably in a pretty sensitive situation.
I'm now thinking about all the patients I take care of, and I shudder to think at the targeted ads that are deliberately targeting these individuals.
Data brokers have lists about sexual assault victims. They have lists about dementia sufferers. Those are some really concerning types of categories, and you could definitely see how an advertising company could take advantage of people on those lists. So I think a lot of people's first reaction on seeing these data broker reports is like, where has all of this come from? There are a lot of places where data brokers get information. Most commonly, apps that you download that have deals with data brokers to share information.
Eu sabia que as aplicações estavam a obter os meus dados, mas não fazia ideia de que algumas os partilhavam com corretores de dados. Isso é legal?
How often have you seen a terms and conditions screen just like this?
All the time. Anytime I download anything, basically. And I download apps all the time for work, play, life, convenience. So I just scroll all the way down and hit accept. Because I'm over it.
And I think that's how most people feel about it.
By accepting these terms, you allow the platform to freely...
For demonstration, promotion, and
terms and conditions are really long.
Cool, I'm in a commercial, don't even know about it.
The right to produce...
Carnegie Mellon once did a study that said it would take days for somebody to get through all of the terms and conditions.
Exploiting, they actually use the word exploiting.
You represent and warrant that you
that
own
puts
all your users.
People in a really difficult position when we're supposed to manage our own privacy, but we're also supposed to use all these things that are products that will make our lives better. Data brokers are a big industry. It's about a $200 billion industry right now. I think a lot of people expect it to grow to, $400 billion in the next few years.
That level of data from our past, all the things we've done, being used and put into systems to help predict our futures, that's unprecedented, and that's rife with the potential for discrimination, for harm, for exclusion.
Okay, I know I said that I'm not the type to log into the electronic.
Eu adoro estar online. Gosto de partilhar o que ando a fazer nas redes sociais e não tenho medo de partilhar os meus pensamentos.
Okay, bugs, I don't bite you. You don't bite me. It's that easy.
Mas alguns destes dados pessoais são, bem, pessoais. Por isso preciso de saber o que posso fazer para tornar a minha vida digital mais privada e segura.
Privacy and security are not the same thing. For example, Facebook is extremely interested in protecting your security. They want to make sure that it is always you logging into your account. They will go through a great deal of trouble to keep your account secure. But you enter all kinds of data into that account. You tell it where you are located, you send it all of your pictures, you send messages, and Facebook collects all of that data. They don't want you to keep it private, they want you to hand it to them so that they can use it in order to serve you targeted ads and make them money.
As minhas contas estão mais seguras quando controlo o acesso às mesmas. Mas isso não significa que os dados que coloco nelas permaneçam privados. Longe disso. Privacidade e segurança não são a mesma coisa, mas são duas faces da mesma moeda e tenho de compreender ambas se quiser proteger os meus dados pessoais.
When your privacy is taken from you, your agency is taken from you, privacy is that whisper. When you think you're whispering to your friend, but you're shouting in a crowded elevator, you're robbed of something. And that's why privacy is so important.
O que posso fazer agora para proteger a minha privacidade e a minha segurança? Para aprender dicas e ferramentas para preservar os meus dados em ambas as frentes, vou conversar com o hacker e educador Matt Mitchell e a especialista em cibersegurança Eva Galperin. Primeiro, privacidade. Desculpem, é melhor falar baixo. Matt é um defensor da privacidade no Crypto Harlem. A criptografia é o processo de esconder ou codificar informações.
Hey, I'm Matt. Thanks for coming to Crypto Harlem.
Crypto Harlem is anti-surveillance workshops for the Black community and all marginalized communities around the world. And our mission is to develop people's digital skills so they can actually help us in the fight to push back on digital harms.
Privacy is not secrecy. Privacy is just a door in your home. There's a sense of I want to control what can be seen and what can't be seen just for me.
E eu quero fechar essa porta. Como é que faço isso, nem que seja só um pouco?
Okay, what do I do to make all this safer for me? What do I do? Who do I talk to? How do I start?
You have to ask yourself, is this a problem that needs to be fixed? Privacy isn't a switch, it's a dial. You get to control how much you share, with who and with what.
Vamos começar com um dos grandes, algo que utilizo constantemente todos os dias e aposto que vocês também o fazem.
Have you ever used this website called Google?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, well, let's check this out. Well, if we go here to myactivity.google.com, it'll show us all the things that you've been doing. So for example, when we go here, we see all the different Google services that you use. I don't think they make a service you don't use.
Estas plataformas estão enraizadas na vida de muitos de nós e por uma boa razão. Criam produtos que podem ser muito úteis. É difícil imaginar um único dia sem pesquisar na web ou utilizar uma aplicação de navegação. Mas também consomem muitos dos nossos dados. É um compromisso que aceito fazer dentro do razoável.
I use literally everything Google has ever offered.
And it knows what you've used, and it records everything you've ever used and how you've used it. Every search term you've used, every shopping item you've used. But this is the dashboard to delete it.
Não sabia desta opção, mas posso apagar grandes quantidades de dados que o Google está a armazenar sobre mim. E o mesmo se aplica a outros serviços.
We can dial to whatever level we feel comfortable. For example, on LinkedIn, you would just click on me,
and then you would go to your settings and privacy. Here, when we go to manage your activity, it tells you that, you started sharing your LinkedIn data with a permitted application.
Tratar a privacidade como um botão regulador significa que não é tudo ou nada. Pode ter o seu bolo de dados e comê-lo também.
Like now I'm thinking that I want to log into everything, all my social media, my email, my LinkedIn, everything regularly and look to see who is using these.
Exactly. It is about awareness. Furthermore, the companies, they know how many people actually use the privacy controls. And by you even peeking in it, you're saying, I believe privacy matters.
Na Electronic Frontier Foundation, Eva mostra-me como posso levar a minha privacidade para o próximo nível ao ensinar-me autodefesa de vigilância. Embora não seja esse tipo de autodefesa.
So the next step in your privacy journey is fighting back against types of corporate surveillance. And one of the things that websites really like to do is not just to track what you are doing on their website, but to track all the other websites that you go to. And they do this using cookies.
There's some companies I trust, and I'm like, fine, you have these cookies, they're chocolate chip, I know where they were made, I know what you're doing with them. But then there's these third-party companies, I don't want them around me.
You can use a browser extension to eat these cookies and fight back against this kind of tracking and keep those websites from seeing where else you're going.
As extensões são complementos para o seu browser que lhe dão características e funcionalidades extra, como apagar cookies.
I'm imagining this like digital cookie monster that's eating up all these pieces of my online activity so that companies don't know what I'm doing online and it reduces the amount of privacy tracking. Am I understanding that?
What these browser extensions do is they get rid of the tracking cookies that these websites use to see all the other sites that you're going to, which is none of their business.
O meu mundo digital pessoal começa a parecer confortável, controlado e muito mais privado. Aprendi a fechar as portas, mas mesmo assim alguém pode voltar a abri-las. Posso ser pirateado. Então como é que fecho as minhas portas? É a altura de falar de segurança.
The tragedy of this recent pandemic teaches us that we're all pretty vulnerable. And without that herd immunity, without that community response, you can't just say, I'm okay, and therefore I don't have to worry about this.
This is the first time that I've ever heard someone compare data privacy to epidemiology and herd immunity.
All you need is one person to make a mistake, and it's game over. That's what happens to so many other corporations, businesses, even hospitals during a ransomware attack that'll freeze all machines and stop them from working until someone pays a bunch of hackers.
My one error could compromise the security of my entire institution.
Human beings will make mistakes. Folks won't wash their hands sometimes, right? But we try to teach best practices to prevent the worst.
Okay, Matt, you have my wheels spinning. I do not want to be patient zero in this like massive infectious data leak. What can I do to start pulling it back and better protecting my information?
Well, I got something for that, okay?
Oh, you have like a bag of tricks.
I've got a bag.
I thought you were just to say like change your password.
We got to go all the way. This is a privacy screen, and this will keep people from being able to look over your shoulder. Shoulder surfers, beware. Can't look through that.
This is for like using my computer in a public space, the airplane.
Everywhere. This is a Faraday bag. We gotta keep your phone in here. This blocks RF signals. It's basically aluminum foil, but it has
Posso abrandar pouco?
You can't get hacked when you're not attached to anything.
Is this really necessary? A Faraday bag?
Parece mais complicado do que eu esperava. Vou ter de me transformar no 007.
We also have a Wi-Fi pineapple. This is a portable access point, and we also can use it to detect and stop access points from going bad.
Matt, isso é muito à frente.
Let's say you have a hard drive with some important files from work in it. What happens if you lose it? Someone can plug that in and have access to all your stuff. Not if it's an encrypted hard drive.
I understand.
There's more. How do you know that you're not being bugged?
This is nuts.
This is something I could use to find out if there is an audio bug in the room. I can find Wi-Fi signals. Oh, something's here, right?
Pensei que ser um espião seria mais divertido. Começo a sentir-me assoberbado. Como é que posso controlar todas estas coisas? Não sou um gênio hacker como o Matt. E se eu deixasse isto tudo para trás? Adeus, mundo digital.
Do you know there's breaking news? Look in my eyes and tell me. What are we doing here? What are we doing? Like, I don't even know how many steps I've taken today because my step counter is not on my hand. Technically disconnected. This isn't cheating, but can someone tell me what the Sun score is?
Down by 11 at the half.
Oh, I am supposed to pick up my daughter. How long do I have to do this for?
Talvez não seja assim tão fácil, mas tem de haver um meio termo entre o Inspector Gadget e o Fred Flintstone que seja adequado para mim. Em vez de sair completamente do radar, vou voltar a contactar a Eva para aprender mais sobre autodefesa de vigilância. E vou começar pelo básico. Palavras-passe.
I'll be honest. My current password is basically a combination of my first pet's name plus my birth date or a favorite video game or song. I don't think any hacker is really going to guess that, but you're telling me that there's still a vulnerability there.
Yes. Hackers can go find out information about you from data brokers, including, the name of the street you grew up on or the city where you went to college. So you wouldn't want a password like the name of your pet or password 123.
Well, I did have a pet fish, and his name was password 123. So I guess that kind of hits both boxes and makes me more vulnerable.
Let's start by creating some strong and unique passwords for all of your different accounts, and that will make them much more hacker-proof.
I'm all ears.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to start by rolling these 5 dice. There are easy ways to create passwords that are long and strong and easy to remember that are not based on information that attackers can easily find about you. And the way that we do that is we use word lists and dice. A word list, essentially just a long list of dictionary words with numbers attached. So what we're going to do is we're going to write down the numbers on this dice.
4, 5, 2, 6, 3. My
Okay.
new lucky numbers.
And now we are going to look up 4, 5, 2, 6, 3 in this book.
So there are words that correlate to the numbers that I just randomly rolled.
Yes.
Okay, I want a cool word like tiger.
The word is pre-soak.
Pre-soak?
Pre-soak. 3, 4, 1, 1, 5. Henna.
Okay, I like this.
A ideia por detrás deste jogo de dados é encontrar uma combinação aleatória e longa. Os piratas informáticos, através de computadores rápidos e software de decifragem, são capazes de tentar muitas palavras-passe por segundo. Um estudo recente de uma empresa de segurança mostrou que uma palavra-passe de 7 caracteres pode ser decifrada em apenas alguns segundos. Mas uma palavra de 12 caracteres, com letras maiúsculas e símbolos, é muito mais difícil de decifrar. Os hackers podem demorar mais de 100 anos a decifrá-la. É seguro, mas também mais difícil de digitar ou lembrar. Uma frase-chave aleatória de 6 palavras é mais fácil de lembrar do que uma sequência aleatória de 12 caracteres e praticamente impossível de decifrar.
Stinging. Ignition. 6 is clutch.
Clutch. Okay. Pre-soak, henna, stinging, ignition, clutch, handbrake.
Fantastic. Now you have a passphrase. These 6 words. It is long, it's unique, it's difficult to guess, and it's relatively easy to remember considering how long it is. It is a very good way of creating random passwords, but a lot of password managers will automatically do this for you.
Assim que tiver uma frase-chave, pode utilizá-la para desbloquear um gestor que gera palavras-passe aleatórias fortes e as armazena em segurança.
Now I have this beautiful random password or passphrase, but what happens if someone steals this? Is it just game over, efforts are gone?
No, it is not. That leads us to the next step on your surveillance self-defense journey, and that is two-factor authentication.
Pode parecer um termo complicado, mas é apenas uma camada adicional de segurança que requer um método adicional para confirmar a identidade. Na maioria das vezes, trata-se de uma simples mensagem de texto.
because it requires that you have two things in order to log into your account. You will need both your password and also this code that the site will send you a text message. There is also an authenticator app. The site will ask you to take a photo of and then go to the site in a QR code. The best way to be a security superhero is to find the stuff that works for you and implement it as sort of smoothly and seamlessly as you can.
Estas dicas de autodefesa são boas para mim e para os meus dados. Mas e para os outros? Haverá uma forma de todos nós partilharmos dados e obtermos os benefícios sem sacrificar a privacidade e a segurança? No Media Lab do MIT vou encontrar-me com Ramesh Raskar, que está a trabalhar numa forma de aceder aos benefícios dos dados pessoais de saúde, um tópico que finalmente compreendo, sem comprometer a nossa informação privada. No Camera Culture Lab, estão a criar ferramentas de recolha de dados que parecem saídas de um filme de ficção científica.
Love when a sign says danger laser. You know, important things are happening in here.
Têm câmaras que conseguem ver através das paredes.
Get out.
We are not violating the laws of physics.
E câmaras que podem ver dentro dos nossos corpos. Mais pessoal do que isto é impossível. Para Ramesh, proteger a privacidade do paciente é fundamental, mas ele encontrou uma desvantagem na forma como fazemos isso. Com os dados bloqueados por razões de privacidade, o avanço da ciência médica não é tão rápido como poderia ser. O acesso a gigabytes de dados pessoais de saúde poderia ajudar a grandes descobertas médicas. Mas hoje em dia, os investigadores têm de pedir o consentimento para espreitar os dados para poderem aprender com eles.
When we talk about consent, someone is still peeking into your data. A no-peek privacy, on the other hand, is where nobody can peek at your data.
Privacidade sem espreitar? Como é que os investigadores aprenderiam alguma coisa?
There are many ways to create no-peek privacy. First one is the notion of smashing the information.
Não é esmagar literalmente o telemóvel. Mas não vou mentir. Foi muito divertido.
Smashing is basically the idea of taking raw data and smashing it into just the wisdom.
De acordo com o Ramesh, esmagar dados é o processo de extrair a informação útil, aquilo a que ele chama a sabedoria, enquanto oculta os dados privados. Por outras palavras, uma coleção de registros de saúde privados contém dois tipos de dados. Um tipo são os dados pessoais, os nomes, condições e historial, aquilo que queremos absolutamente proteger. Mas coletivamente, os registros podem conter informações valiosas sobre padrões nos cuidados de saúde. A sabedoria.
I'm thinking about examples in healthcare, and the individual data, the patient data, is protected and you can't reverse engineer it.
Let's take a concrete example of COVID. Imagine during the early days of the pandemic, we could have sent medical experts from here in Boston to China, to Korea, to Italy, and embedded them in those hospitals to understand what COVID pneumonia looks like on a chest X-ray. And they could have come back to Boston, all those medical experts, and said, hey, together we can figure out what this is.
Os especialistas regressariam apenas com a sabedoria, uma compreensão da Covid derivada da exposição a grandes conjuntos de dados. Mas não regressariam com informações específicas sobre os doentes, nenhum dos dados sensíveis e privados. Isso exigiria a partilha inicial dos dados dos doentes, o que não é possível.
Because of privacy, because of regulations, because of national security issues, they couldn't.
É aqui que entra a inteligência artificial. Em vez de enviar especialistas para cada hospital, Ramesh está a trabalhar numa forma de fazer a inteligência artificial aprender. Um modelo de inteligência artificial poderia ser treinado com base nas radiografias dos pulmões dos doentes para aprender a identificar os sinais de Covid. Os dados de saúde privados nunca seriam copiados e nunca deixariam o hospital ou a ficha do doente. A inteligência artificial apenas transmitiria as suas conclusões, a sua sabedoria, os seus dados esmagados.
It's not enough to just remove the name from the chest X-ray, but make sure that you don't send any of the pixels of the chest X-ray at all.
A inteligência artificial pode aprender padrões e adquirir conhecimentos sem ter de se apoderar dos dados de toda a gente. Assim, a sabedoria de um hospital pode ser combinada com a sabedoria de outros.
Achieving privacy and benefits of the data simultaneously It's like having a cake and eating it too. It's available, and it's just a matter of convincing large companies to play along those rules.
Os dados esmagados são uma forma de aprendermos a deixar de nos preocupar e a gostar de partilhar os nossos dados pessoais. Mas todas as redes empresariais teriam de concordar em esmagar os nossos dados em bruto. Não creio que devamos esperar que as grandes empresas de tecnologia façam isso.
The big technology companies, they have built the infrastructure of the whole internet. You're not just interacting with these companies when you know you're interacting with them.
Mesmo que pareça que estamos em sites independentes, as grandes empresas continuam a ver-nos. Por exemplo, muitos sites que pertencem à NASA, à Pfizer, à BMW ou até à PBS utilizam os Amazon Web Services, o que significa que a Amazon obtém dados quando os visitamos. Ou quando visita qualquer aplicação no seu iPhone, a Apple sabe. Além disso, sempre que visita uma página que tem um botão de gosto do Facebook, o Facebook fica com os seus dados pessoais.
So it may seem like the web is decentralized because it comes from many different places, but in fact, there's centralized points of control.
Right now, for example, when you are in a social media app, you're sort of locked in, right? All your information is on there. It's hard to leave a social media app because you're like, all my friends are there, all my photos are there. If I move to another app, I have to rebuild that community.
Those social media websites are controlled by a very small number of companies, and the rules about using those websites, who has access to them, and what kind of behavior is acceptable on them are set by the websites themselves.
Como é que podemos começar a desmantelar este monopólio centralizado de dados? É isso que os proponentes de uma ideia chamada web descentralizada querem fazer.
The decentralized web is sort of our antidote, the antithesis of the web as we now think of it.
The decentralized web can be seen in contrast to the centralized web, of course. Instead of what has become on the internet of a few big players kind of controlling a lot of the web and the internet space, we're really kind of rolling things back to kind of what the vision of the internet was.
Gostava de saber como seria uma web descentralizada, por isso vou encontrar-me com a programadora Christine Lammer-Weber, que está a trabalhar na elaboração de normas e regras para que as redes sociais possam funcionar numa rede descentralizada.
Most people are familiar with social networks. You know, they've used, X/Twitter, they've used Facebook, they've used Instagram. The decentralized social web is like that, but no one company, no one gatekeeper controls the thing. We want to be able to have all of our different social media sites, all of our different online communication tools be able to talk to each other.
The decentralized web is one that is focused on the self-determination of users. You're not locked in. So you find a service and you like it. And then you and they start to part ways. The art you made, the stories you told are there. In a decentralized web, you go somewhere else. You go somewhere else so you don't lose any of that.
Mas imaginem que em vez de termos uma empresa do tipo Facebook, cada um de nós tinha os seus dados em direto nos seus dispositivos e era fácil juntarmos-nos ou fundirmos com outros ou desligarmos-nos deles. Sair de um grupo e juntar-se a outro não significaria reconstruir tudo do zero, porque os dados se movem connosco. Parece uma fantasia tecnológica, mas é algo que já provamos que funciona online. Imaginem algo que podem utilizar todos os dias ou, se forem como eu, a cada minuto: o correio eletrónico.
So what a lot of people don't realize is that they use decentralized networks every day. It doesn't matter if somebody's on Gmail or if they're on Hotmail, they're on their university email. They don't even have to think about it. They type an email to their friend and they send it off and it gets there, right? At the heart of it, that's kind of the basics of what we're doing.
Por outras palavras, podem receber um e-mail do Hotmail, mesmo que tenham uma conta Gmail. Ou podem criar o vosso próprio servidor de correio eletrónico. Não importa qual o serviço de correio eletrónico que utilizam, porque o protocolo, as regras, estão escritas para permitir que os servidores de correio eletrónico falem uns com os outros.
That's because there's a shared protocol that says, here's how we get the messages from place to place. Social networks could just work like email.
E há muitos projetos descentralizados, como o Mastodon ou o Blue Sky, que colocam o perfil e os dados do utilizador de volta nas suas mãos.
In the systems we're moving towards, That will be much more the case, where private communication is much more private. They're by default secure in that type of way. We're building new foundations for the internet that allow for healthier, safer, more decentralized systems, gatekeeper-free. That's the vision and the future we're trying to build.
Sem dúvida, existem segredos nos nossos dados.
Everything we touch is increasingly datafied, every dimension of our lives.
All of this data goes in to feed algorithms, and algorithms make predictions about how long you will live, or your health, or your lifestyle.
E embora eu tenha aprendido a proteger a minha privacidade e segurança pessoal, não há muito que possa fazer sozinho.
There are things that individuals can do to protect their privacy. Ultimately, in order to avoid a huge crisis, it requires systemic change.
There are limits to what we can do as individuals. There are also things that need to be addressed through regulation, through litigation, and through legislation in order to make all of us safer.
É reconfortante saber que há técnicos a tentar proteger-nos a nós e aos nossos dados, concebendo novas formas de desfrutar da diversão e da comodidade do mundo digital sem sermos explorados.
New technologies, new games can proliferate without centralized points of control. That's the excitement of the decentralized web.
I can't wait for people to see this vision we're building for collaborative, more consensual, decentralized social networks. That's going to be really exciting.
O futuro que estamos a construir pode não parecer muito diferente da internet de hoje, mas pode ser muito mais privado e seguro, se o construirmos bem.
This is about how technological self-determination and regulation work together to make a world that is more safe for human habitation.